a world of power and fame, where everything can be bought, a wealthy proportion seeks something that money cannot possess, a real connection. But where will you find it? During a table evening at a better gala, an unexpected decision changes everything. And when these two opposite worlds collide, a strange proposal is made. Can love blossom from an unexpected encounter? A question that makes us wonder, can they overcome everything to find each other, or is it just a game of fate? Can a billionaire and a homeless woman find love amid their differences? Don't miss the next part, because surprises are waiting for you. Welcome to Heartfelt Stories, where unexpected moments lead to life-changing transformations. Today, we bring you a story of contrast, surprises, and the power of seeing beyond appearances. Alexander Hayes, a wealthy, powerful man, finds himself captivated by someone who couldn't be more different from the world. He knows a simple yet profound proposition at a charity gala changes everything for both of them. What happens when you find love in the most unexpected place? Watch until the end and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories of connection and change. Title: A surprising proposal in high society. The city was alive under the bright evening lights. A buzz of sophistication filling the air. Alexander Hayes, a billionaire investor in his early 40s, stared out for his penthouse, surveying the glittering skyline. Known for his sharp business acumen and flawless public persona, Alex was the kind of man who could change an industry with a flick of his pen. But tonight he needed something entirely different. A date, not just any date, but someone who would add a splash of unpredictability to the routine, carefully curated events he attended. Alex had just gone through a highly publicized breakup with a famous actress, and the media was ablaze with speculation about who his next companion might be. The pressure to make an impression at the annual charity gala was enormous, with his wealthy peers and the tabloids ready to scrutinize every detail. Stepping out of his office into the cold, bustling streets below, Alex's eyes scanned the sea of faces. That's when he saw her. She was tucked away in a shadowy corner, a woman wrapped in a worn coat, her face partially hidden beneath tangled hair. People walked by without a glance, but Alex noticed something different. She held herself with an air of quiet dignity, a resilience that was not diminished by her circumstances. Alex's polished shoes clicked against the pavement as he approached her. She looked up, startled, her eyes wary and what guarded. "Excuse me," Alex began, his voice steady yet sincere. "I have an unusual proposition for you." She studied him for a moment, her eyes narrow, gray, suspicion evident. "What kind of proposition?" Alex smiled. "Just a hint. I need a date for a formal event. It's tonight. You'll be compensated, of course." The woman blinked, her gaze skeptical. "You want me, a stranger on the street, to be your date?" "Yes," Alex replied, meeting her eyes. "You seem intriguing. It would make for an interesting evening. Are you interested?" For a long moment she just stared at him, uncertainty etched across her features. She tightened her grip on her coat and turned away, muttering, "I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not interested." "Wait," he said softly. "I understand it sounds strange, but I assure you, it's genuine. Just a few hours of your time. I'll make it worth your while." She paused, then glanced back over her shoulder. Her eyes searched his, trying to read his intentions. "How much?" she asked, her voice guarded. Alex's lips curved slightly. $5,000. Tonight only." Her eyes widened. She took a shaky breath, looking down at her worn shoes. "All right," she murmured, almost as if in disbelief. "I'll do it." Alex extended his hand. "Alexander Hayes." He introduced himself. She hesitated briefly, then reached out and shook his hand. "Charlotte Williams," she said quietly. Soon enough, Alex had Charlotte Williams in a sleek black car, the leather seats, polished chrome, unfamiliar to her. She looked around, her eyes wide with apprehension and curiosity. The car whisked them through the city, stopping in front of an upscale boutique where a team of stylists stood ready. "Why are we here?" she asked, looking at him, confusion evident in her gaze. "If you're going to be my date, you need to look the part," Alex said with a gentle smile. "Let's get you ready." The stylist whisked Charlotte Williams away into a dressing room, their skilled hands working to transform her. She sat in front of the mirror, watching as the years of hardship seemed to fade, her natural beauty shining through. They fitted her in a sleek dark green gown that hugged her frame, elegantly making her look both ethereal and powerful. When she stepped out, Alex was momentarily stunned. She looked breathtaking, poised, graceful, yet with a vulnerability that made her seem real in a way most people in his world were not. "You look amazing," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. Charlotte Williams glanced at him, her cheeks tinged pink. "Let's just get this over with," she replied, though her voice was softer, a hint of trust creeping in. They arrived at the gala, a grand affair with chandeliers sparkling overhead, casting their light On the elegantly dressed guest below, classical music floated through the air. As the room buzzed with chatter, Alex kept a steady hand on Charlotte Williams's back as they entered, feeling the weight of countless eyes followed them as they made their way through the opulent ballroom. Whispers rippled through the crowd, each person exchanging glances, speculating about the mysterious woman on Alexander Hayes' arm. It wasn't just the fact that she seemed out of place in this high society gathering, it was the way she carried herself. People were curious. They couldn't help but wonder, who was she? How did she end up here? Charlotte Williams clung tightly to Alexander's arm, her body tense, her breath shallow. Every pair of eyes felt like an invasion, every whisper like a sharp blade. She felt small amidst the sea of elegant gowns and tailored suits. Her heart raced, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. She leaned in close to Alexander, her voice barely audible, almost drowned out by the chatter around them. "Charlotte, everyone's staring. I don't know if I can do this." Alexander sensed the anxiety rolling off her, but he gave her a reassuring smile, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos. "Alexander, let them stare. You don't owe them anything. Just be yourself." Charlotte looked up at him, her shoulders relaxing just a little, though her nerves didn't completely ease. She tried to take his words to heart. Just be yourself. But it wasn't so simple. In a room full of polished faces and sharp elbows, who she was felt like it didn't belong. She was still getting used to the idea of being in this world that had never seemed within her reach. As the evening unfolded, something incredible began to happen. Charlotte, despite her initial discomfort, started to let go of the weight of the gazes on her. The fear, the self-doubt, it began to melt away, little by little. She wasn't sure if it was the warmth of Alexander's presence or the realization that, for once, no one was expecting her to be anything other than what she was. But as the night went on, her unease started to dissipate. She stood tall, her posture less guarded, her smile more genuine. She spoke with an honesty that was refreshing in a room so often filled with superficial pleasantries. While others exchanged polite, practiced words, Charlotte cut through the facade with her sincerity. She didn't need to pretend. She didn't need to play the game. She spoke with an open heart, and her words were like a breath of fresh air in the stifling, overly rehearsed conversations happening all around her. As she engaged in conversation with a particularly snooty couple, Charlotte's voice took on a tone of quiet conviction. "Charlotte, I think it's important to remember that people are much more than their wealth or status. It's not the money that defines someone's worth. It's the experiences they've lived, the challenges they've faced, and how they've come out stronger on the other side. Often it's those who have endured the most who have the most strength of character." The couple, momentarily taken aback, exchanged uneasy glances. Alexander, who had been watching her with admiration, smiled inwardly. He knew that Charlotte had a way of speaking truth in a way that others just couldn't. It was real, it was raw, and it was refreshing in a world that had long been obsessed with appearances. "Alexander, you're incredible," he whispered, his voice full of admiration. Charlotte caught the sincerity in his tone, her cheeks flushing slightly. She turned to him, her voice softer now, filled with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Charlotte, I'm just trying not to embarrass you." "Alexander, you could never embarrass me," he said, his words firm and unwavering. "I'm proud to be here with you." And in that moment, as the night continued to unfold around them, something shifted in Alexander. It wasn't just her beauty that captivated him. It was the way she spoke her truth, how she carried herself with a quiet strength that contrasted so sharply with the world of pretension they were surrounded by. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, and that was exactly what he needed. As the evening wore on, Charlotte continued to stand out, not because of the glittering gown she wore, or the attention she garnered by being at Alexander's side, but because of who she was. A woman who, despite all odds, remained unapologetically herself. And in that moment, Alexander realized just how much he was drawn to her, not just her outer beauty, but her soul, her spirit, her authenticity. Witted and sharp, her sincerity surprising even Alex. She was unlike anyone he'd ever met, so real in a world where everyone else was playing a role while speaking to a particularly haughty couple. Charlotte Williams' voice took on a tone of quiet conviction. "I think it's important to remember that people are much more than their wealth or status. Often it's those who have faced the greatest struggles, who have the most strength of character." The couple, seemed taken aback while Alex found himself smiling, a deep admiration blossoming inside him. He realized that Charlotte Williams was far more than a curiosity. She was someone whose perspective was unclouded by the trappings of wealth, someone who saw things as they really were. Throughout the night, Alex found himself watching her, captivated. She moved with a grace that belied her circumstances, her honesty lighting up conversations. "You're incredible," he whispered to her at one point. Charlotte Williams laughed softly. "I'm just trying not to embarrass you." "Could never embarrass me," he replied, sincerity in his voice. He realized in that moment that his attraction to her went beyond just her looks. He admired her strength, her resilience, and her capacity for honesty. As the evening drew on, an old college acquaintance of Alex's approached them. He was a man with whom Alex had shared many business dealings, and his curiosity was clear as he looked from Alex to Charlotte Williams. "Alexander," he said, his voice laced with intrigue, "I didn't know you had a new companion." Alex could feel Charlotte Williams's tension as she looked away. In that instant, something shifted within him. He felt a surge of protectiveness, an urge to shield her from the scrutiny and judgment of his world. Without thinking, he took her hand. "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "Charlotte Williams and I are very close." The man's eyebrows rose, but Alex didn't wait for a response. He led Charlotte Williams away from the crowd to a quieter corner of the ballroom. "What was that about?" she asked, her voice shaky. Alex turned to her, his expression softened. "Sometimes people need to be reminded that life is about more than appearances." He paused, his gaze searching hers. "Tonight I realized I want more from my..." Alexander looked at Charlotte with determination, but there was also a hint of nervousness. He could feel the unease in her eyes, the doubt, and the unanswered question hanging in the air. The space around them seemed to quiet down, as if time had paused, with only the soft music in the background and the sound of his own breath filling the silence. His hands clenched slightly, trying to steady the emotions rising within him. Alexander continued, his voice softening but still filled with conviction. "Charlotte, I don't know how to explain this feeling, but when I look into your eyes, I see something different. You make me feel something I haven't felt in a long time. You make me realize that I need to change, to live a life that's real, not just one based on appearances." He took a step closer, closing the gap between them, though his heart raced in his chest. Charlotte looked up at him, her gaze still full of confusion. A faint smile played on her lips, but she quickly turned away, as though trying to hide the emotions rising within her. "Charlotte, Alex, I'm just a woman off the streets. I'm not worthy of you. You could have anyone, so why me?" Alexander paused for a moment, then he stepped closer again, his expression firm. "Because I don't want anyone else. I just want someone real, someone who doesn't try to change themselves to fit the mold society expects. You can be yourself, and that's what I cherish. You see the world with a different perspective, and that's something I need." He paused again, taking a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside him. Charlotte didn't say anything, her eyes still uncertain. But in this moment, under the soft ballroom lights, all they needed was silence to listen to their hearts. Alexander reached into his pocket, slowly pulling out a small black velvet box. Both of their eyes met again, and for a fleeting moment, the noise and chatter around them seemed to fade away. He knelt down in front of her without hesitation, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring inside. Alexander spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Charlotte Williams, I know this might seem sudden, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You are the person I want by my side. Will you marry me?" In that moment, everything around them seemed to go silent. The distant sound of the orchestra, the murmurs from the crowd, everything blurred into the background as Charlotte stared at the ring, then looked up into Alexander's eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she felt the overwhelming rush of emotion she had been holding back. "Charlotte," her voice trembling, barely above a whisper. "Alex, I don't know what to say. I'm just a regular woman. I don't deserve this." Alexander gently held her hand, his thumb brushing over her cold fingers. "Don't say that. You are everything I need." Charlotte inhaled deeply, her heart pounding. A hesitant smile crossed her lips, and after a moment of silence, she nodded. I say yes. I'll marry you." The room erupted in applause as Alexander stood and pulled Charlotte into his arms. In that instant, she felt something she hadn't in years: security, warmth, and a sense of belonging. Alexander looked down at her, his heart full, knowing he had found the missing piece of his life. Someone real. Someone who would stand by him and challenge him in the best ways. As they gazed into each other's eyes, they both knew this was just the beginning of a new journey, one they had never expected, but were eager to take together, hand in hand, facing whatever the world had in store for them. Beautiful diamond ring, Charlotte Williams. I know this is sudden, but I've never been more sure of anything. Will you marry me? Charlotte Williams's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. She looked at Alex, her heart pounding. The sincerity in his eyes broke through every wall she'd built around her heart. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her voice trembling. Say yes, Alex urged gently, his eyes pleading. Give me a chance to show you I can be the man you deserve. A tear slipped down her cheek, and after a moment she nodded, her voice barely audible. Yes, she whispered, I'll marry you. The room erupted in applause as Alex stood pulling Charlotte Williams into his arms. He held her tightly, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years: security, warmth, belonging. Alex looked down at her, his heart full. He knew he had found the missing piece in his life, someone real, someone who would stand by him, challenge him in all the best ways. As they looked into each other's eyes, they both knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. It was a path neither of them had expected, but it was one they were eager to take together, hand in hand, facing whatever the world had in store for them.